Continuing the session of MCQs on macroeconomics, and the topic related here is business cycle. This is a question that has appeared in 2018 UGC NET paper. This is a match the following where there are two lists given. List 1 where they have given the phases of business cycle, and list 2 they have attached the characteristics related to each business cycle phase. So starting with recession, we know that recession is a time period where everything is considered to be a low or a negative, right? Everything is going negative. Whole pessimist attitude and atmosphere has been the prevailing in during recession. Boom is a time period where everything is in the highest level. Recovery is somewhere there is positive, that there slowly there is optimism coming around, positive attitude among people for looking for job, for doing demanding more products. And depression is a time period where they have reached the lowest point of the economy, right? So you can easily match the list 1 and list 2 here. Next question is related to 2017. In trade cycle theory of Hicks, long run equilibrium growth is determined by. So we know that trade cycle theory of Hicks is where Hicks and Samuelson, we said that they both coincide in their concept where they said that business cycle happens due to multiplier and accelerator interaction. So we know that you see under multiplier and accelerator concept, is there anything related to technology? No. Anything related to population? No. Is there something related to autonomous investment? Yes, because multiplier, MPC, and accelerator, everything is related to investment. Changes in income and changes in consumption due to investment is being considered, right? So answer can be option 3 where autonomous investment is determining the equilibrium growth under Hicks model. Okay, next we are moving on to the next question. The theory in which trade cycle is generated due to excess of actual over desired investment has been given by whom? So there are different economists being given. Samuelson is for sure, we know that it's not the answer, because we know that according to Samuelson it is accelerator and multiplier interaction that give rise to business cycle. Here the question is, if there is some excess investment, due to excess investment business cycle happens. So it's a theory given by Hawtrey, Hayek's model itself is known as over-investment theory. So over-investment theory, according to him, business cycle happens because there is an actual investment is more than what is actually needed or desired in the economy. So his theory itself is known as over-investment theory. Schumpeter, you know that Schumpeter's model itself is breaking the chain with innovation. So his theory itself is known as innovation theory, where according to him, business cycle happens due to changes in technology and new innovation and discoveries. And we can also consider Hawtrey's theories. Hawtrey model, consider he's a monetary theory. His theory is known as monetary theory, where according to him, trade cycle happens due to changes in money supply. Okay, so we know all the theories. So even if the question is not about a particular thing, you know all the theories right now. So you know the innovation is related to Schumpeter, acceleration multiplier is related to Samuelson, Hayek is related to investment, over investment, Hawtrey is related to money supply. Okay, moving on to next question that which has appeared on 2018 UGC NET paper. According to new classical economics, real business cycle are results of which of the following? Innovation, bad weather, tax policy, debt policy. Suppose this is a question and we have not studied anything related to new classical economics or real business cycle theory. We don't know anything about real business cycle theory. This is the time period where you apply your logic. You know the new classicals are somewhat supporters of classicals, and you know that classicals are supporters of laissez-faire policy. So they are for non-intervention of government. So any governmental policies or fiscal policies are not going to be the answer for this. Here there is tax policies and debt policy which cannot be the answer, because you are cutting down the options, you are narrowing down your answer, deleting some of the options. Here tax policies and debt policies are fiscal instruments used by government, whereas classicals or new classicals, followers of classicals, believe that economy has to be free and government intervention should not be there. So those two cannot be the answer. Coming to the first and two option, that can be the answer. Here you can see that 1 and 2 is an option. All other things are related to other governmental intervention policies. It's combined with other governmental intervention. So it's very easy for you to answer. It is innovation and bad weather. Okay, so new classical, they said that technological shock with innovation will bring change in production technique. Suppose there is a new technology being introduced and the whole production technique changes, which may result in expansion in an economy. That is what one of the phase of business cycle is, which creates business cycle fluctuation. Even bad weather and good weather can also create trade cycle movements. With a good weather, you have peak and boom, you have good production, you have prosperity in the economy. With a bad weather, you come back to depression. Okay, so this is what new classicals believed in. There are two factors that bring about business cycle is technological shock and innovation. So here again there are some of the theories which are related, some of the economists who are related to real business cycle theories. You can go through this and study, and so they may ask who has propounded real business cycle theory, or who are not related to real business cycle theory, and they may give you some economists. So it will be very handy for you if you know that these many economists are related to real business cycle theories. Next question is an assertion and reason question. Assertion: business cycles according to new classical economics are monetary in nature. There are results of fall, these are results of fall in real wages. So business cycle theory is something they only, new classical economics, even before you have mentioned new classical theory, they believe that all the variables are real in nature. Only real variables like employment and output has been stressed. So all these economic in only those variables, real variables, can have any influence on economic outcomes. They completely rejected this monetarist view on business cycle. They said money is just a medium of exchange, and any changes that happen in the economy happen because of changes in real variables like real wage rate, real interest rate, employment, output. These are some of the real variables. So according to new classicals, they stressed on real variables, not nominal variables. Who stressed on nominal variables? Classicals. Okay, so these are some of the so the answer can be 1, where A is false and R is true. R is true because they believed in fall in real wage rate. That is because there is a stress on real variable. But 1 is wrong because they did not believe in monetary nature of economic variables. Moving on to the next topic of MCQs under macroeconomics: inflation. Inflation is everywhere and always a monetary phenomena. So the moment we hear a monetary phenomena, it's been said by Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman is the one who said that inflation is a monetary phenomena. Okay, so there is, and who rate of interest has been considered as a monetary phenomena by Keynes. Consider the following statement, choose the correct one. Inflation is advantageous to debtors, inflation is advantageous to bond holders. We need to see which of them is correct. Considering inflation, suppose you know debtor is a person who have taken loan from another person, and the person who have given loan is known as creditor, right? So debtor is taking money in 2020, and in 2021 he need to return it back, and the inflation rate have increased in 2021 when compared to 2020. Now that inflation has increased, debtor have to pay the same level of amount, which he might have taken 10,000 in 2020. He need to return 10,000 with some extra interest rate or something, but almost remain same amount. So 10,000 he have to return to the creditor in 2021, and in 2021 inflation rate has increased. So for him, the value of the money have reduced, so it's easy for him to return 10,000. Whereas for a creditor, when he is receiving 10,000, which had a greater value in 2020 and lesser value in 2020, he is going to lose. So under inflation, debtors will gain and creditors will lose. Okay, so inflation is advantageous to debtor statement is absolutely true. Inflation is advantageous to bond holders. Bond holders are considered to be kind of creditors. They actually lose. How can, because they are bond holders, they give the money and take the bond, right? And they will sell the bond once it is profitable for them. So they're like creditors giving their money and taking the bond, right? So they will lose. So this slide shows some effects of inflation which you can go through, right? Next, menu cost in relation to inflation refers to. So there are different costs related to inflation. So menu cost is related to cost of revaluing currency, cost of altering price list, cost of maintenance of monetary base, cost of finding better rates of return. So what is menu cost? So menu cost is some cost which has been incurred by firm when there is a change in price of goods and services they sell. Okay, so you know that due to inflation, prices may change very frequently, right? And you might have gone to hotels or restaurants and you have seen that menu. They might have stuck a small piece of paper on the price, and they have written on them, right? So that means instead of, now that is the practice being followed, but initially they have to change the menu with the cost, because if there is an inflation, they have to change the menu. Because suppose there is an inflation and they said that one biryani costs 100 rupee, they, after inflation all the cost of production have increased and they have to change it to 200. Every now and then they cannot keep printing the uh, menu, right? So they, there is certain, until and unless there is significant profit for them by changing the menu, then only they will lose. If there is no significant loss incurred, then they will not be changing it immediately. So the cost incurred to print a new menu, to display the new price, removing the old price tag and replacing it with the new price tag, is kind of an investment for them, which requires time, effort and money. Managing that, that is kind of a pricing of the product. Okay, so firm may only be willing to do that if they have a significant loss, otherwise they will go with that same price. That kind of cost is known as menu cost. Okay, so the answer is cost of altering price list, option 2. If economy is operating at potential GDP, an increase in money supply will lead to. So now they are talking about full employment level. Potential GDP means it's a full employment level and aggregate supply is fixed. Now there is an increase in money supply. When there is an increase in money supply, people have more money in their hand, so they start consuming more, they demand more. So with a fixed aggregate supply and aggregate demand increasing, that means there is a shift in aggregate, upward shift in aggregate demand, which will only put pressure on price. So that creates inflation. That kind of inflation is known as demand pull inflation. Okay, so the option is 3. These are some of the types of inflation that you can go through and understand. Inflation is underdeveloped, in underdeveloped countries occur due to. So underdeveloped countries, inflation happen due to. So first option is high rate of saving. You know that underdeveloped countries usually, though they don't have much kind of say, because they don't have much income, their saving rate will be very low. That affects the capital formation and investment and all, right? That is why there is huge investment cannot happen in underdevelopment, because they lack saving. So one cannot be the answer. Check of demand. You know that most of the developed countries, they search for developing countries as a market for demand, so nobody is controlling the demand. Check of demand is not there in underdeveloped countries. Lack of supply. Okay, lack of supply can be the answer, because they have scarcity, their resources are limited. So accordingly, underdeveloped countries, because of lack of capital or lack of capital investments, lack of supply, they may have inflation, because for them whole resources are being employed, and any kind of increase in demand will only cause inflation. Okay, high rate of investment also cannot be the answer, because we know that one of the major characteristics of underdeveloped countries is that they lack proper saving and investment. So the answer is 3. Inflation after the end of war is an example of. So you can see that there are types of inflation I have given, and this kind of inflation is suppressed inflation, because during an emergency period, what government does or any monetary authority does is that they do not allow the prices to go up after a certain limit. Okay, they will set a limit and they will not allow them to rise to high level. Like recently some of the state governments during corona time have done that. There was a kind of price rise that was happening which is uncontrolled, so they felt that it should be suppressed. So that kind of inflation may happen at the time of war, where there is scarcity of goods happen, so there is a kind of government intervention happening, and such kind of inflation is known as suppressed inflation. One of the important casual variable of cost push inflation is, so inflation happens because of uh, cost push inflation. Okay, so what is cost push inflation? Cost push inflation is something that happens because there is increase in wages. The presence of trade union is major reason why wages keeps on increasing. Okay, so the moment there is an inflationary rate, trade unions trust for revising their pay scale. So when there is an increase in wage rate, what happens? Producers, for them, wage is one of the factor of production, and that increases the cost of production for them. So they will not take the burden of this cost of production. They are running the whole organization or producing it for profit, so they will not curtail their profit. For them it is, they will simply transfer this increase in cost of production in the form of increase in price to the consumers. They will shift the burden of increase in cost of production as price to consumers. So that creates inflation. Ultimately it end up having, workers end up having same level of output they had before their increase in income. So that is kind of a cost push inflation. Because of increase in cost of production, because there is an increase in wage rate, that creates, employers will raise the price of the products, and this will create cost push inflation or wage push inflation. So major reason for cost push inflation is trade unions. Which of the following is not used in measurement of inflation in India? We know that all other price indexes are being used, and purchasing power parity index is something which we don't use now. Purchasing power parity index is something, it also produces inflation rate, where they consider a basket of goods of one country which and a basket of goods of other countries are being compared. So different location, two countries, basket of goods are being considered, and inflation rate has been determined. Okay, so that kind of practice is not there right now. We follow these three, wholesale price index and consumer price index has been considered as a major tools to measure inflation in India. PPP you might have heard when you are studying international trade, when it comes to exchange rate and all, right? Currency exchange rate policies and all follow PPP, used to follow PPP initially. Next topic that we are going to consider under MCQs of macroeconomics is unemployment. This is a question which has appeared in 2012 UGC NET. It's an assertion reason question. Disguised unemployment is present in Indian agriculture. We know that there are different kinds of unemployment, and disguised unemployment is one among them. Disguised unemployment is very well present in agriculture sector in country. Okay, now we need to know the reason why they are present. Marginal productivity of agriculture is close to zero. So what exactly is disguised unemployment? Disguised unemployment is where there are 10 workers working in a piece of land, okay, and 4 of them are removed. Even if 4 of them are removed, the output remained the same. That means the marginal productivity of these 4 workers are equal to 0. Even if we remove them, they are not going to affect the output or production level of the field. That means those 4 are disguisedly unemployed, or hidden unemployment is there for them. So assertion is very true, and it is the reason marginal productivity of agriculture is close to 0. Even if we remove those workers, it's not going to affect them. So what happens if there is disguised unemployment? The wage rate comes down. Okay, this happens because of there is a lot of population, and most of the people are depending on a particular sector for employment, that is agriculture in India, right? So both A and R is correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. These are some of the types of unemployment that you can go through. Next question, which has appeared in 2013. If 1 is equal to involuntary unemployment, 2 equal to disguised unemployment, 3 frictional, 4 structural, then full employment is consistent of. This we have mentioned when we are studying NAIRU, that is under Phillips curve. We know that under NAIRU there is some natural rate of unemployment. Even if there is full employment, there is certain level of unemployment still occur in the economy, right? That kind of unemployment is what we already said, it is frictional and structural unemployment, which is C, that is 3 and 4, right? In 2014, the question asked is frictional unemployment is also known as. So when we are discussing NAIRU, we have discussed what a frictional unemployment is. Frictional unemployment is where people, the time period where people move from one job to another job. When you're quitting a job and you're going for another job, the time period that you take to seek another job where you are temporarily unemployed is what we call frictional unemployment. So here it is turnover unemployment that is very similar to that of friction. When you are turning over from one job to another job, the time period that temporarily you are unemployed while you are in search of job is known as frictional unemployment or turnover unemployment. Another question which has appeared in 2019 UGC NET regarding unemployment is long term chronic unemployment arising from imbalance between skill and other characteristics of workers in the market and need of employers is known as cyclical, frictional, structural, and seasonal unemployment. So again, this is a thing which we have discussed under NAIRU when we are discussing what is structural unemployment. When there's a change in structure or when the employers demand something and they're not getting it that from the workers, such kind of unemployment is considered as structural unemployment, right? That means there is a pure mismatch between the demand for labor and supply for labor. The demand, that is demand from the employers, are they are looking for certain skill, they are looking for some other characteristics in the workers which is not met by the workers in the labor market. That is the classic example that I gave before, is the introduction of computer. That technology, that skill was not attained by many of the workers, and the people who were ready to work did not possess the computer skill, remained unemployed. Until and unless they learned that kind of skill, they were unemployed. So that is the kind of unemployment which happened because there is a structural change in the economy. So the answer is 3. Involuntary unemployment concept was introduced by, we know that all other economists mentioned over here, Adam Smith, Say, Marshall, all are classicals and believe that there is full employment in the economy, right? And they believe that if there is some kind of unemployment, then it has to be voluntary unemployment where people are able-bodied. They are simply not looking for job, they don't want to work. Is kind of work kind of unemployment will only be there under full employment level. But for Keynes, there is unemployment, and his kind of unemployment is involuntary unemployment. So the answer is 1. The negative relationship between real GDP and change in unemployment rate is defined as. So coming to the concepts, natural rate of unemployment, we know that natural rate of unemployment is nothing related to GDP. It is related to a Phillips curve where inflation and unemployment is considered. It is that rate at which is the inflation doesn't change. Inflation is zero with the change in unemployment, right? So it is not the answer. Phillips curve, we know it's a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. It's not between GDP and unemployment. Gresham's law is something you might have heard about, currency market, where there is a famous quote like Say's law, supply creates its own demand, is the slogan for Say's law. Like that, Gresham's law, it's a very famous in the currency market, where they say that bad currency, bad coin or bad currency drives out good currency. Okay, so that is also not the answer. So we are left with Okun's law. Okay, what is Okun's law? Okun's law is giving a statistical relationship between GDP and unemployment. He found that when unemployment reduces, production of the country increases. Of course, because when unemployment falls, that means more people are being employed. That means production will automatically increase and it will create more income in the economy. GDP will automatically increase in the economy. So Okun's law says that there is a relationship between GDP or income and change in unemployment rate. The moment unemployment rate reduces, GDP increases according to Okun's law. You can go through Gresham's law as well. It's a question which has appeared in 2017 UGC NET regarding unemployment. If actual unemployment rate is below the natural rate of unemployment, it would result in, this is a repetitive question that has been asked before also when we were discussing Phillips curve. So this is NAIRU, anything under NAIRU will put pressure on price, right? If they're trying to reduce the unemployment rate, it will, any effort to reduce the unemployment rate will only put pressure on price, leading to inflation. So the answer is rate of inflation would increase. Okay, so if actual unemployment is less than NAIRU, it will lead to inflation. If actual unemployment is greater than NAIRU, then it will create deflation. If both actual unemployment and NAIRU is equal, then inflation is zero, that is constant. That is what we call NAIRU is. Next question. Friedman argued that natural rate of unemployment would be determined by some institutional factors. They have given some institutional factors and the answer is all of the above. According to Friedman, availability of job information helps. So we know that Friedman and Phillips curve, they said that there is NAIRU, there is natural rate of unemployment. There are two kinds of unemployment, structural and frictional. So all these institutional factors help to determine NAIRU, that is determine structural and frictional unemployment. to reduce them actually. So the availability of job information. So frictional unemployment is when you seek job, when you're going in seeking or going in search of job. So when you know all the job information, that search period will be reduced. So frictional unemployment can be reduced, which is there in Nairo, right? So next is skill and education. Skill and education also, if you're highly skilled, if you're trained, you can work in any kind of sector, then you are mobile, your ability to move from one sector to another sector, there is no restriction for you to you can supply labor anywhere you want. So the flexibility in labor market with less restriction even from trade union and due to your skill and education will also reduce structural unemployment, because we know that structural unemployment happen because there are certain skill which are being demanded by the employers, and when the workers don't possess it, when you have the skill and training and education to work anywhere in any field, and you're mobile enough to shift your job from one to another even if the structure change. Okay, suppose I am working in a complete, I'm an agriculturalist, still I know computer, so even if I lose here, I can simply be mobile and go from one sector to another sector, IT sector, very easily, right? So that these are all the institutional factors which determine Nairo. Next class is on ISLM model, which will continue in the next class.